You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed-sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed-sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
And away we go. Episode 1119 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, July 25th, 2025. It is the day after we had reports on Thursday evening of the Commanders having agreed with safety Percy Butler on a one-year contract extension. This also is the day of us learning of the date for a vote by the D.C. Council on the deal between the Commanders and Washington, D.C. for a Commander Stadium on the RFK Stadium site. August 1st, as in next Friday, August 1st. You perhaps remember 2.2.22, 8.1.25. That is the date for this vote. We on Wednesday had the reports that D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson had reached an agreement with the Commanders to adjust the financial terms of the stadium deal. And Mendelson on Thursday morning on Instagram announced a vote for August 1st. Quote, "Today, we're scheduling a vote for Friday, August 1st, 2025 to consider the RFK campus legislation. We've been working with the Washington Commanders for several weeks, and we feel we have a much improved agreement that would bring the team back to their historical home, as well as develop the land around the RFK campus. It's clear that the Commanders showed through their negotiations their commitment to the district and their willingness to consider what's in the best interest of our citizens. The process working with the Commanders has been extremely productive, and they've been a cooperative partner. Overwhelmingly, residents have asked the council for due diligence on this multi-billion-dollar deal and under immense outside pressure to rush the process. I feel that, along with next week's hearings, the council will have what's needed to move forward with a vote." End quote. And we on Thursday morning had this statement from Commanders President Mark Klaus on the D.C. Council's scheduled vote on a revised stadium agreement. Quote, "We are thrilled that the council will vote to hopefully support this project on August 1st. We appreciate their effort to keep us moving toward our goal of opening our new stadium for 2030. We are also grateful for the valuable feedback and support from our fans and community over the last several months. We believe in the transformative power of this project for D.C. and thank Mayor Bowser for her vision and leadership, as well as Chairman Mendelson and Council for their thoughtfulness and diligence in collaborating on our plan. Through this process, we've seen firsthand how committed our city's leaders are to building a strong future for the district. With the council's announcement today, the opportunity to bring the team back to its spiritual home and revitalize a critical part of the nation's capital is now one step closer." End quote. So you take all of that in, and how do you not arrive at the conclusion that the D.C. Council is going to approve this stadium deal, right? I mean, the expectation all along has been that the council ultimately will approve this deal. It does look like that is indeed going to be happening. This news, of course, comes off President Donald Trump this past Sunday on Truth Social, calling for the Commanders to go back to being the Redskins, including a post in which he threatened to derail the team's deal for a stadium on the RFK Stadium site in D.C. But yeah, man, next Friday, August 1st, poised to be a rather big day for the NFL team of Washington, D.C. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Edge defender Von Miller, he on Thursday morning spoke for more than 20 minutes in a post-practice press conference at Commanders training camp, which was his first session with reporters since officially signing with the team as an unrestricted free agent this past Monday. Miller did a good job in the presser, especially in addressing why he signed with the Commanders and where he is at as a player. Also good stuff from head coach Dan Quinn in his pre-practice press conference on Thursday morning and talking Von Miller. So we'll discuss Von Miller coming up later in the show. And also during that segment, reaction to comments from Quinn on Thursday morning on cornerback Marshon Lattimore and on the Commanders' culture. But next segment, we talk Commanders' offense off comments from Quinn on Thursday morning, including the continuity factor. This is the first time in 9 years that Washington at training camp has the same offensive coordinator and same QB1 as the previous season. Just how valuable is that? Also, Quinn spent a good bit of his presser on Thursday morning talking about the offensive line, including what was behind the team spending significant resources in the 2025 offseason to improve the line. And also on the show, we'll talk Orioles. They on Thursday afternoon won at the Cleveland Guardians 4-3 to prevent a 4-game sweep as multiple Orioles trade chips perform well, including starting pitcher Charlie Morton, 3 runs in 6 2/3 innings with 7 strikeouts. But closer Felix Bautista now is out. The O's on Thursday morning announced having placed Bautista on the 15-day injured list retroactive to July 21st due to right shoulder discomfort. Before we get to some feedback, rest in peace, Terry Gene Bollea, a.k.a. Hulk Hogan. We on Thursday morning learned that the Hulkster had died at the age of 71. I am a child of the 1980s and 1990s. I, as a kid, was a massive Hulk Hogan fan. I was a Hulkamaniac back in the day. I have been a pro wrestling fan since the 1980s. I have followed the inner workings of the pro wrestling business since the mid-1990s. I on radio used to do a weekly pro wrestling insider segment off the top rope. I love doing that segment. Anyway, Hulk Hogan, here's the legacy. The most famous pro wrestler in the history of this country. Point blank, period. The most famous pro wrestler in the history of this country. There have been other ultra-famous pro wrestlers in this country. Lou Thesz, Gorgeous George, Bruno Sammartino, Ric Flair, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Roman Reigns, etc. But the most famous pro wrestler in the history of this country is Hulk Hogan. Pro wrestling at its core is about drawing money. Hulk Hogan was a massive star in not just one, but 2 different booms for pro wrestling companies in 2 different decades. The WWF boom of the 1980s and the WCW boom of the 1990s. Now, Hulk Hogan, the person, was a flawed person, and there is a lot to him as a person, and we're not going to get into everything right now. I will, though, note this, because this has a local tie. Hulk Hogan, behind the scenes, ruined the biggest show in WCW history, Starrcade 1997, which took place at MCI Center in Washington, D.C. I was there. Him refusing to lose clean to Sting in the main event that night ruined that show and was, in a lot of ways, the start of a downward spiral that resulted in WCW being bought out by the WWF in March 2001. So there is a lot to the legacy of Hulk Hogan, but there are so many good memories that so many of us have when it comes to Hulk Hogan. And so we say, rest in peace to the Hulkster. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback to me on Wednesday's show, episode 1117, pushing back on this take of, I'd rather have the Commanders' success of last season than have the team be the Redskins again. My take is, what the heck does one thing have to do with the other? If you think that the name Redskins is bad and should stay retired, fine. But if you wish that the team would go back to being the Redskins, how does the team being the Redskins preclude the team from winning? One thing has nothing to do with the other. Email from Jim D. Writes Jim, What's up, Galdi? In defense of the I'd rather win than be the Redskins crowd, I think that while many of us would welcome a return to the Redskins branding, there is a lot of frustration with those who scream on Twitter that they will never support the team again as long as the team is the Commanders, and that it is Redskins or bust. It's difficult because the team under this new ownership has finally got back right and just found its greatest success in 31 seasons, a success like nothing many of us have seen in our lives. And yet, many folks could not care less. So with that, it's often difficult to distinguish between those who long for the Skins to return but still root for the team's success and those who do not. Thank you for the email, Jim. Understood. There certainly are people for whom the situation is Redskins or bust, and for whom the name change has ruined their fandom of the team. I am not in the business of telling anyone how to feel about this name issue, but I am not one of these people for whom the situation is Redskins or bust, and for whom the name change has ruined fandom of the team. I despise so much about the name change, but the name change has not ruined my fandom. I'm as big of a fan as I've ever been. I still root very hard for the team. I still take a lot of joy in the team doing well. I talk about the team for a living, and I take a lot of pleasure in doing that. Email from John in Virginia writes, John, "Hey Al, love the show. I was listening to episode 1117 and heard you ask what the name change and this past season's success have to do with one another. I was born and raised in Virginia, will be 47 this September. As long as I can remember, there has been controversy with the name. I remember that Sunday morning back in January 1992 seeing the protests about the name outside of the Metrodome. Even on our biggest day, the name controversy loomed. I believe without George Floyd, the name would have never changed. I know the Fred Smith story, but I believe the name would have survived if Smith would have done what he did in, say, 2018, not the backdrop of 2020. I think Snyder never would have sold the team if the name was Redskins. Without the summer of 2020 and the reckoning it had, and without the Redskins retiring their name, Snyder never would have sold, and we'd be living in what was seemingly, at the time, a perpetual purgatory. We viewed the team's success and, more importantly, the chance at continued success because of Harris first and foremost, right? Without the name change, the ownership would not have changed. So the point is, I think people like me, 46 years old, whose first memories are either the Riggins run or maybe the humiliation in Super Bowl 18 or even the Bears' playoff loss at home, we deal with the pain of losing the name by saying, well, without the name change in the summer of 2020, Snyder would still be here. It's arguable, but I think most people know it to be true. Thanks, Al. Thank you for the email, John. I hear you. I get where you're coming from. But here's the thing. The name Redskins going away isn't why Dan Snyder sold the team. The number one reason that Dan Snyder sold the team is that he lost the support of other NFL owners, especially the most powerful NFL owner, Dallas Cowboys owner, president, and general manager Jerry Jones. The other NFL owners finally turned on Snyder, and they turned on him for multiple reasons. But once the other NFL owners turned on him, he was done. The NFL owners are like a mafia. And when you're in and you are a made guy, as Snyder was for years, you are protected. And in a lot of ways, you are indestructible. But once you are no longer a made guy, once you are out, you are done. And that's what happened with Dan Snyder. The other NFL owners, most prominently Jerry Jones, turned on Snyder. And when that happened, he was done. Now, I will concede this. The name Redskins going away devastated Dan Snyder and caused him to become checked out. And that element perhaps resulted in him not being more combative in the other NFL owners pushing him out. But he never would have won a battle with the other NFL owners and the league office. That is a force so deep in money and power that Snyder would have gotten stomped. And deep down, he knew that. And so he ultimately relented and sold the team. I want to play something for you. ESPN senior writer Don Van Natta Jr., a multi-time guest on this podcast. The investigative work of Don throughout the Dan Snyder saga was spectacular. Don joined me on episode 996 to tell the incredible tale of how the greatest head coach in Washington history, Pro Football Hall of Famer Joe Gibbs, saved the Commanders, how he compelled Dan Snyder to go through with the sale to the Josh Harris Group when Snyder was trying to not go through with the sale. But Don, during that conversation, also explained the significance of the fracture between Snyder and Jerry Jones. Take a listen to this exchange. The Snyder-Jones relationship clearly soured. When it comes to why the NFL ultimately made Snyder sell the Commanders, how big of a reason is Dan losing the support of Jerry?
Maybe the most important reason in the end, because for years, when the Washington Post did its first run of reporting about these allegations of sexual misconduct, a toxic workplace culture, Jerry Jones was still a firewall of support for Dan Snyder, an all-important one, because Jerry is one of the, if not the most influential owner, arguably as influential as Roger Goodell, and has Roger Goodell's ear. And when I did my profile of Jerry Jones 10 years ago, Snyder was calling Jerry constantly. Jerry had a flip phone back in those days, and Snyder kept calling, asking for advice then about a new stadium. And Jerry saw in Dan Snyder something of himself. As a young upstart, when Snyder came into the league in his 30s, Snyder wanted to get involved with the broadcast committee. He was on the broadcast committee very early on with Jerry. Jerry saw in Snyder a protege, somebody who he could help along, and Snyder knew how to press all the right buttons with Jerry to ingratiate himself with Jerry. So when the last time I saw Jerry, I asked him about Snyder. It was in late November, and he said to me very simply, as we quote in the story, it was time for a divorce after Snyder's nearly quarter-century partnership with the National Football League. But interestingly, Al, you raise a really good question. In our story back in October of 2022, our very lengthy story about Snyder digging up dirt on Goodell and fellow NFL owners, that he had told people that one of the NFL owners he dug the dirt up on was Jerry Jones, and that he would use that dirt to potentially, Snyder said he would use that dirt to blow up those who might try to force him to sell. Well, that did not sit well with Jerry, and my information is that was really the last straw. And as I say, once that firewall of support ended with Jerry, it's not a coincidence. It's just in a matter of weeks after our story was published about that dirt, Jerry and Tanya Snyder announced they were going to sell the team.
All right, tremendous insight from Don Van Natter Jr. right there, and he affirmed a very important point. The number one reason that Dan Snyder sold the Commanders isn't the name change, isn't the scandals, isn't the investigations. No, the number one reason that Snyder sold the team is that he lost the support of other NFL owners, especially Jerry Jones. Jerry turned on Dan, and when that happened, Dan was done. Email from Kim, writes Kim. Hi, Al. I think when Josh Harris maintained that he was not going back to the Redskins name, he referred to the Commanders as a winning organization, and the name being associated with a winner. Obviously, the Redskins name is associated with winning, but it was not in recent times, and the Commanders name now is. I want the Redskins name back, but when Josh said that, it resonated with me. Anyhow, I really don't like the team playing hardball with Terry. They know he is the ultimate teammate and the glue that has held us together through some very tough times. Thanks, Al. Well, thank you for the email, Kim. It may well be that the team is playing hardball with receiver Terry McLaurin in these stalled contract extension negotiations, but we can't be sure about that. We don't know what the Commanders are offering McLaurin. We don't know what McLaurin is asking for, so we don't know if either side is being unreasonable. Hey, put your knowledge of the Nats and O's to work for you on Prize Picks. Yes, each team is having a disappointing season, but that doesn't mean that you can't make money off each team's season. Prize Picks is offering free cash to listeners of this podcast. Download the Prize Picks app and use the promo code Galdi, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Yes, $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks Pick'em. That is available in Virginia and Washington, D.C. You just pick more or less on players in various statistical categories like RBI or strikeouts. And Prize Picks Streak is available in Maryland. You make a free daily pick Just choose more or less on one featured player projection each day and build your streak by winning for 2 or more days. Each correct pick grows your streak. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports app, and Prize Picks is offering a special deal to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the app and use the promo code Galdi, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is awesome. I've used it. It's a ton of fun. It's easy to use. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your opinions into real money on Prize Picks and take advantage of what Prize Picks is offering to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the Prize Picks app, use the promo code Galdi, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hey, if you happen to be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can write a review of the podcast saying that you like it. The review can be just a sentence or two, but the reviews help out the podcast a lot. And if you want to support this show, writing a nice review does help out a tremendous amount. The reviews help us get advertising. So we thank you very much for whatever help you can provide. Thursday was day 2 of 2025 Commanders training camp in terms of full team practices. We had some veteran players who got veterans days off on Thursday. Those players, edge defender Von Miller, left tackle Laramie Tunsil, and receiver Noah Brown. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn did a pre-practice press conference on Thursday morning, and something that came up is something that's pretty remarkable when you think about it. So Washington, this training camp, has something that the team had not had since 2016. The same offensive coordinator and same QB1 as the previous season. Amazing but true. This is the first time in 9 years that Washington at training camp has the same offensive coordinator and same QB1 as the previous season. Here are your OC QB1 combos for Washington at training camps over the previous 10 years. Not necessarily for these seasons, but for these training camps. And in some of these instances, the QB1 wasn't declared as the QB1 for the entirety of camp, but in each of these instances, the player for all intents and purposes was the QB1 for camp and was the QB1 for week 1 of the regular season. Here we go. 2015, Sean McVay and Robert Griffin III, though it was during that 2015 preseason that you-know-who supplanted RG3 as the Skins QB1. 2016, Sean McVay and you-know-who. 2017, Matt Cavanaugh and you-know-who. 2018, Matt Cavanaugh and Alex Smith. 2019, Kevin O'Connell and Case Keenum. 2020, Scott Turner and Dwayne Haskins. 2021, Scott Turner and Ryan Fitzpatrick. 2022, Scott Turner and Carson Wentz. 2023, Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell. 2024, Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. And here we are at 2025 Commanders training camp, and the team's OC QB1 combo is Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. First time since 2016 that Washington at training camp has the same offensive coordinator and same QB1 as the previous season. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between WUSA 9 sports anchor Chick Hernandez and Dan Quinn.
You talk about consistency. How big is it for your quarterback that Cliff remained here and for the entire program? And how large is that those two are together for a second season?
Yeah, the two of them and Tavita and David Blau, Brian Johnson, like this, like ecosystem of quarterback play, it's really cool. But the person right in the front and center of it is Jaden, and it's the work ethic that he just doesn't back off, and that's one of the things that I really admire about him, that he is not changing the way he approaches things. I want to get in early to find my edges and find the spot. So it is one of the things that I really, really appreciate him. The unseen work that goes in with him, it's a lot, and the staff's a big part of that, because when you're doing those things together, like, you're helping them get ready, and so we're very fortunate that way.
And we heard Dan Quinn in that answer use a word that we on this podcast have discussed a good bit: ecosystem. The Commanders for Jaden Daniels have a great ecosystem, and each of the team's top 5 offensive assistant coaches in terms of Daniels are back from last season. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson, run game coordinator / running backs coach Anthony Lynn, quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard, and assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan. To stay on the Cliff topic, last year was about getting acclimated to each other. The defensive coach, the offensive coordinator, figuring out what makes sense, how to build this team. You did that. Now the next year, I was curious, what was your offseason approach like with Cliff? How did you guys communicate about, hey, here's what obviously worked, here's what we need to fix? How did you guys kind of have those as a discussion?
Yeah, we did that really in all 3 phases, Ben, to make sure that what did we really like and we want to keep doing, and what do we need to stop doing. In other words, this isn't as effective. It's not, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And then as an entire staff, that's where we really wanted to make our mark. Could we collaborate at an even stronger level? When you're putting in a system, or Joe and Cliff, had the expertise in their sides, and now you're able to add, some more variations to that after going through some time, because now you can study some other things. When you're first putting in a system, Ben, the very first thing, it's cut and dry, and this and this and this. Then you can explore as it goes on. So it won't stay exactly the same year in and year out. So now you can add other experiences. And so I like the fact that the staff is collaborating, which makes sense in year 2 more than in year 1. Year 1, you need chemistry, connection, support. The play callers need support. Yes, that's a good play. It'll work, as opposed to, I did this somewhere else, I did this somewhere else, I did this somewhere else. It's much easier to do that year 2 than year 1. Year 1, it's about putting in our systems, finding the drills, how to feature the players for that specific skill. Then you can open it a little bit differently.
And all of that is part of the optimism that the Commanders' offense for this coming season might be even better than the team's offense for last season. There is an offensive continuity, the likes of which this franchise has not had in years, to say nothing of the QB1 being a second-year quarterback coming off an all-time great rookie season. Now, another reason for optimism with the offense is the offensive line hopefully being even better. The team on March 15th officially traded for Houston Texans left tackle Laramie Tunsil. The team on April 24th took offensive lineman Josh Connerly Jr. out of the University of Oregon with the number 29 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. There is a competition going on between Connerly and Andrew Wiley for the team's starting right tackle job. Wiley worked with the starters on Wednesday morning. Connerly worked with the starters on Thursday morning. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
So we saw yesterday Wiley with the ones and Connerly with the two at right tackle. At this stage, what should or should we not read into that? Like, I guess where's your mindset at with that position right now?
We're going to compete for this for a while, so I wouldn't look into it because you'll see on ones today that Connerly will be at right with the ones, and we'll mix it around some. So, and I wouldn't read into that in the same space. So, it is cool to see. All right, here's going against Vaughn, and then the next time against DA. And so, how do we work different guys and work them? And the training camp practices against other teams help as well. So that's why I'm looking forward to having the chance to go up, with the Patriots and have the Ravens here. So in preseason games, so there's a lot of exposures that can happen, and that's kind of how you get better. You just got to go and fight for it. But it is a fun experience to go through. I was, thinking about him yesterday. Like, he's probably watched a lot of Von Miller, but he's never blocked him, and blocking him in practice and the first day with no pads is well different than, 3rd and 8 inside of 2 minutes with the game on the line. So lots to do, but I'm really encouraged by Josh's work ethic.
Well, the hope, of course, is that Josh Conerly wins the starting right tackle job. You spent a first-round pick on a tackle with the idea of him being a starter, although him playing guard has come up. But Conerly was Oregon's starting left tackle for all of its games over the last 2 seasons. Andrew Wiley has been the Commanders' #1 right tackle for each of the last 2 seasons. He joined the team via signing with it as an unrestricted free agent in March 2023. Wiley, over the 2023 and 2024 regular seasons, played in and started 29 of the Commanders' 34 games, all at right tackle. And as you may recall, we this past March 13th had reports that the Commanders and Wiley had agreed on a restructured contract. The team this past offseason trading for Laramie Tunsil and spending a first-round pick on Josh Conerly, was that part of a concerted effort to upgrade the offensive line? We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Ben Standig and Dan Quinn.
You guys obviously made a lot of adjustments on the offensive line, trading for Laramie, drafting Josh, and your discussions with Cliff. How much did whatever the topics you were discussing lead to those kind of bold decisions?
Well, that's driven first through Adam, and when you make moves like that, at the spot, that's big ones. And Adam's bold to make those things and make the decisions that we need. And we're in constant communication about the roster. So through the off season, we do an assessment after the season. Before you even look into free agency, you look at your own group. And before the guys even left, we met with every player on the team that was a free agent and who's back and how do you start with that, and then you keep building, Ben. But we're fortunate from the coaching side that we're part of the discussions with Adam and his staff on the personnel about what's the best fit for our team. And I love that we scout and pick players for us, not for the NFL, what fits us. And there's a culture element to that as well. We're not for everybody, but for the guys that, love ball, love competing, this is the type of environment that you could really thrive in, but we really push it. And that's not for everybody, but we like doing that, and that's why we work so hard on our skills, not just in training camp, but you see that in December and January. We're still working the skill work because I think that's the edge, and we like doing that.
It is worth noting, as I have noted before, that the Commanders' offensive line this past season was good. The Commanders for the 2024 regular season were number 9 in the NFL in ESPN's pass block win rate and were number 2 in the NFL in ESPN's run block win rate. The idea that the team's offensive line last season was bad or even mid is wrong, but that doesn't mean that the line can't be better, and the line did have run blocking problems as the season went on. That was part of the team's rushing offense in terms of running backs struggling as the season went on. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dan. When you guys did your look back on your team at the end of the season, how much of rebuilding the lines of scrimmage was simply a matter of we need to get different talents in here, and how much is it division based? Like, we've got to figure out how to block Carter and Davis. We got to figure out how to block Dexter Lawrence. We got to figure out how to block Parsons on a regular basis.
Fair question. It wasn't division based, but maybe that's a byproduct of it, because we wanted to be a line of scrimmage team first, and make sure at those spots, if you're strong there, we felt that, hey man, you got a chance to be in every fight. And obviously the year prior, having the opportunity to draft, Jaden that high, that was a big opportunity. So at that time, it was also, we got Zach even before we had the quarterback. We knew that importance of the tight end and some other things that I thought Adam was thoughtful about. But going into the evaluation piece, we knew every position maybe we don't address, but how would we get what we want to get to? And there's also some players that we're excited to see develop. But the line of scrimmage on both sides, that was definitely a big emphasis for us. And so we're excited to see these guys develop together.
And devoting resources to the offensive and defensive lines was a roster construction lesson from the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl this past season. Eagles Executive Vice President and General Manager Howie Roseman has been militant in building up his offensive and defensive lines. But the point about the pass rushers in the NFC East is a worthy one. I mean, the Eagles defensive front includes interior defensive lineman Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and edge defender Nolan Smith Jr. The Dallas Cowboys defensive front includes edge defender Micah Parsons, and, yes, edge defender Dante Fowler Jr., who spent last season with the Commanders. And the New York Giants defensive front includes interior defensive lineman Dexter Lawrence and edge defenders Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. The other three teams in the division are loaded with imposing defensive linemen. Hey, if you are planning a party, a family reunion, a wedding, a corporate gathering, and aren't sure where to start or what to do, no worries, no stress. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business, and it specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your needs and exceeding your expectations. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. More now from Commanders training camp on Thursday. As mentioned last segment, edge defender Von Miller did not practice on Thursday morning due to getting a Veterans Day off, but he was a big-time topic on Thursday. The Commanders this past Monday afternoon officially announced the signing of Miller as an unrestricted free agent. He's going into his age 36 season, but is coming off a good season for the Buffalo Bills. During head coach Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Thursday morning, and this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
Von, what were some of the things that you saw in the leading up to this on film that said, hey, he still has something to offer here?
Yeah, you want to see as a pass rusher, John, first thing, can you beat somebody to the punch? He's got different unique talents. He can bend. He's long. But at this point, it's what's the skills? You want to find out what the skills are. And I like the stunts. I like that he's versatile, that he can play from his feet. He can play from down. We like to use variety in how we would want to go attack things. So that was some of the things that we talked. I'd be up on my feet. I could go inside, stand up. And so Luvu does some of that. He does some of that. I just like having a deep crew of guys that can be versatile and do things. But I also like the detail that he gets into as a pass rusher. We talked a lot about the summit that he's been part of for a long time, of other players and their ability to share and veterans. So it was just fun to talk pass rush with him, honestly. So what I saw on tape, the quickness to beat somebody to the punch, and that's what pass rushing, the first part, has to be about getting the offensive tackle back and feeling that stress. If you don't have that, it makes it difficult to put a lot of stress on a tackle.
So you had some older players, Bobby, Zach, guys like that, who were productive. What's your philosophy, and how has it changed with handling guys who are at that stage to keep them fresh throughout the year?
Well, really, organizationally, that's a big topic for us to make sure that it's customized, John, to each individual player. through Josh, we've invested a lot, on terms of recovery. We put that as part of our day. But there's also some practices that, there'll be some days where a player who's got a lot of experience and a lot of games, they won't do the same amount as some that's, needs more. And so we just try to customize it even though it's a big scale, but when you're in training camp, it's actually a little easier to do, John, than in season. He can be out, we can work this day. And so we map out the calendar, Adam and I together, what days would make sense for somebody to back off, what days would make sense to push it, because you also need those days as well.
Well, we heard Dan Quinn in his first response there mention linebacker Frankie Louvu. The Commanders at camp have had a defensive look that includes both Miller and Louvu as edge defenders. Very nice, very intriguing. I've been referencing a telling stat with Von Miller. He, for the 2024 regular season, what was his age 35 season, among all players, each with at least 150 pass rushes, recorded the quickest average pass rush get-off time in the NFL for the NFL's next-gen stats at 0.69 seconds. Pretty remarkable. We on Thursday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Going back to Von and his first step, can you teach that, or is that either you have it or you don't?
That's a you have it or you don't. Okay. And you can see it, Nikki, so it's not hard to evaluate somebody that's got the ability to really jump off the spot. Not unlike a boxer, where you have to beat somebody to the punch, and wide or some of the fighters had that quick jab that could just snap things as opposed to methodical and a little bit slower. So the initial quickness at that position is really needed, at end especially. At tackle, you can muscle some guys more, but usually when you're an edge player, you're giving up 70, 80 pounds. So it's not going to be I'm going to get stronger than this player. I've got to beat him to the punch, and then I can use my leverage and wrestle him. But you don't want to fight a fair fight, so you got to beat him to the spot.
And from what you've seen, I know it's only been one day. Does he still have the bend he did maybe in his
Yeah,
prime?
I saw that for sure on the tape from last year. And like I said, we're just getting started on the things that he can do. And that was one of the things he and I discussed together. As we're learning, what do you like, which side, what techniques, what stunts. So I need to learn that, with him over the next month.
Yeah, Dan Quinn getting to know Von Miller. Von Miller himself did a post-practice press conference on Thursday morning. Here was Miller on signing with the Commanders.
It never gets old, especially being out of work for 4 months. Perspective kind of changes a little bit. Back when you were young, you was like, man, why we got to go to OTAs, man? I wish I was home, man. And you sit on the couch for 4 months and it's like, man, I wish I was in OTAs, man. It's good dropping the kids off, and it's good, picking the kids up from school, but I want to go to work. I'll go to work. And, the Washington Redskins called me, a month and a half ago and started talking, and son agreed to come here to Washington about a week and a day ago, and here I am. So excited to be here.
All right. And perhaps you noticed what Von Miller called the Washington Commanders right there. Yes, he said the word. He said the naughty word that you're not supposed to say.
The Washington Redskins called me.
There you go. The Washington Redskins. Why did Von Miller sign with the Washington Redskins? Here was Miller on Thursday morning on why he signed with the team.
Yeah, it was extremely intentional coming here. You just can't leave Josh Allen and go anywhere, man. You just can't go from, the AFC Championship and just, go anywhere. I feel, whenever you get older too, losses, they pile up. It seems like they just hit way harder than what they used to when you were young. And, this team is all about winning. I'm all about winning. Whatever it takes to win, I'm going to do. That's on and off the football field. It's nothing like winning. It's nothing like the locker room. It's nothing like, coming in here and talking to you guys after a win. It's all good after a win. So that's why I'm here, is to win. And, understand that, the goal is to win them all. But in reality, we're going to have some struggles and going to have some adversity. That's all good, too, because, sometimes, most of the time, adversity reveals character, and it's it's all good medicine at the end of the day, and it'll all just feed back into the main goal, and that's to win. So this team is all about winning. I'm all about winning, and it was a good marriage.
So Von Miller making it very clear that the Commanders being a Super Bowl contender is why he signed with the team. And yes, I did say Super Bowl contender. I didn't say Super Bowl favorite, but I did say Super Bowl contender. I mean, think about it. The Commanders made the NFC Championship game for last season. Their over-under win totals for the 2025 regular season are among the highest in the NFC. The team has a QB1 coming off an all-time great rookie season. Yeah, the Commanders are a Super Bowl contender. Something else that Von Miller made clear on Thursday morning is that his role for the Commanders is as a pass rusher. Plain and simple. Here was Miller on Thursday morning on what he has been told by General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn about how Miller will be used by the team.
What did you hear from AP and Dan specifically about how they plan to use you and what they want you to do?
Yeah, they're going to let me rush. They're going to let me rush. That's what I do. I can still roll out the bed, at 36 years old with my house shoes on and still rush the passer. There's other stuff that I got to work at to get better at, of course. But the main thing for me is rushing the passer. I can do that right when I wake up, fresh out of sleep. So love rushing the passer. And then I'm a team guy, too. I'm a team guy through and through. Those are the two things that I toot my horn on. It's nothing like being on a team with other guys. It's just like me going towards a common goal. I've been on a football team since I was in the 5th grade. So now we talking about, 25 years, something like that, playing football. So I just know the dynamics of a locker room. I lead with love, and then you can start to demand and kind of mold and talk to players and tell them what you see. But I lead with love with the coaching staff, too. I love the dynamics of a football team from, the front office to the coaches, the strength and conditioning staff, the athletic training staff, analytics. Football is my life. I love everything about it. So having a new opportunity to come here and experience a whole nother football organization is pretty cool to me, and I accepted it. I try not to get caught in comparisons. I try not to compare teams to Denver or Buffalo or LA. This team is special in its own ways, and all 4 of those teams are special in their own ways, and I just try to embrace it and just take it all in. And so far, it's been good. I like it here. The food is amazing. The food is definitely amazing. Right when I got here, I was just driving by stuff, and my mouth was watering. I was like, "Dang, what's going on?" You got Korean barbecue and steak houses, and they got everything. So that might be my biggest challenge while I'm here. Is just trying to stay away from all the food. The food was good in Buffalo, but options are just a little bit different up there. Here they got a little bit of everything, and I like it.
Well, a lot there from Von Miller, but he last season showed that he can still rush the passer. Miller in the 2024 regular season had 6 sacks, despite playing on just 25.27% of the Bills' defensive snaps. Miller for the 2024 regular season had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 82.4. That's very good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Miller for the 2024 regular season was number 10 among all qualified NFL edge defenders in pass rush win percentage per PFF at 17.6. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post and Von Miller.
When you mentioned the idea of you can roll out of bed and rush the passer, when you are there certain checkpoints that you hit physically where you're like, yep, still got it. I'm still the same player I've always been.
I like to be optimistic about everything. You guys learn that, but when it comes to that, it's just something I've been doing my whole entire life. When I put the cleats on and I get in my stance, I can just feel it. Still quick off the ball, still twitchy. Probably not as twitchy as I was before, like when I was 21 years old. That's just life. But I still got enough twitch to still go out here and do what I do and be effective in the game. And I still feel like I have something to give to the game, on and off the football field. See, the trick is you don't want to get kicked out the league, but you don't want to leave too early either, though. So I'm still in between that sweet spot, and I'm doing everything in my power to stay there. This is all I ever wanted to do my whole entire life is play football. So all those times where you get on your knees and pray, like I hope I can get a scholarship to play football in college, and then you get to college, and then you pray before games, please let me play well so I can make it to the NFL. Then you make it to the NFL, and you're praying for championships and wins. And I still have that gift that God has given me, and I just don't want to give it away. But at the same time, you don't want to get kicked out, and you don't want to leave too early. So I'm in that sweet spot, and I'm going to try to stay here as long as I can.
All right. Also from Von Miller on Thursday morning was him addressing the Ryan Kerrigan dynamic. Two stud edge defenders from the 2011 NFL Draft. Miller was taken by the Denver Broncos at a Texas A&M with the number 2 overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft. Kerrigan was taken by the Redskins at Purdue with the number 16 overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft. Kerrigan's last NFL season was the 2021 season. We're going into the 2025 season. Miller is still playing, and he now has Kerrigan as a coach. Kerrigan is the Commanders' assistant linebackers coach / pass rush specialist. Kerrigan is coaching Miller. He was Miller on Thursday morning on Kerrigan.
I had met with Ryan when I came here on my visit, and it was weird. Me and Kerrigan, we trained together coming out for the combine. As you guys remember, the local press here, he was huge. Like he was jacked. He probably got 6 more reps out of me just training with Ryan. He got 6 more reps out of the bench press with me, just training, being beside him. Like he was so strong. And then you see him now, he's like, hey, who was this guy? But it's definitely cool, man. We came in together, we trained together, and now, he's coaching me. So it is definitely a different dynamic. I'm still, yes, sir, coach. How's it going, coach? But we the same age, so it's all good, man. I got all the respect in the world for RK, man, and I'm excited to continue to work with him.
All right. There aren't that many examples in Washington history of the team acquiring an all-time great pass rusher late in his career. Probably the 2 most notable players in this regard, Deacon Jones and Bruce Smith. Jones played for the Skins for the 1974 season. Smith played for the Skins for the 2000 through 2003 seasons. Jones and Smith are members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Miller almost certainly will one day be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. While we're talking Commanders defense, also from Dan Quinn on Thursday morning was some discussion about cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Will he this coming season be healthy? Will he this coming season be better? Lattimore, being acquired by the team via trade last November 5th, what was 2024 NFL trade deadline day, was with the team for a total of 11 games, 8 regular season games, and 3 postseason games. But he, due to a troublesome hamstring, played in just 5 of those games, 2 regular season games, and all 3 of the postseason games. And the play was not good enough. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Dan Quinn.
It's obviously tough to join a team mid-year, but with Marshon Lattimore last year, was there a lot of changes that had to be made in the way that he played to join this defense? And what kind of expectations, does it ramp up expectations now that he has a full offseason in this program?
Yeah, it definitely changes because now you got to know the coaches as opposed to going in and, okay, here's the game plan and this is what we do. So you kind of get to this is why we do this call, this is why we use this technique, and that's easier. It's also difficult, first came in and was injured, wasn't able to practice, so it wasn't the ideal runway, okay, just as easy as you try to make it, sometimes just not. But now that we have a whole time with him, and he can also communicate too, man, this is a technique I really like, and I want to stay doing that, and that's our job as coaches to find the balance of both. But yeah, he's off to a good start. And I sensed that at the minicamp too, where he was at, the energy with him and the other guys here, it was a good start.
Well, Marshon Lattimore, to me, is the single biggest wild card on the Commanders' defense this coming season. If he plays as he can play, then this secondary can be really good. If he doesn't play well and or is hurt a lot, then the secondary could be in some trouble. And then how about some talk about the C word? No, not Commanders. Culture. This is year 2 of a much improved culture for the team with Adam Peters as general manager and Dan Quinn as head coach. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore and Quinn.
From your experience, what is the difference between building a culture and sustaining a culture?
Yeah. Building it, I would say, leads into sustaining. The culture is what you do on an everyday basis. Sometimes I think people can get environment and culture confused. Environment, like we're upbeat here, we do have a positive attitude. I look at things as the glass is half full, but the culture is the way that we practice, the way that we meet, the competitive nature. And so you have to sustain it. You have to recognize it when it's right and also when it's not. And I think that's one of the real things about sustaining is this is the standard, this is what we have. And so when we see it, I tell them and I show them, whether it's film or a conversation. When it's being met, I want that. I also want it when it's not being met and not just turn a blind eye and hope that it'll get better the next day. So we have really high standards, but you do have to push them. So the fun part is building because it's new and you're trying things. There's some resistance early. Okay, I haven't done that before. But once you get to the spot, then it's like, this is how we do business together. And the sustaining is more about reinforcing and reminding. It's one thing to have it, but like if you don't reinforce it, you don't really have a standard or a culture because it's just a sign on a wall or, some bullshit that you say. If you don't live it, then you kind of just BSing yourself.
Very true. Do not talk about it. Be about it. I'm a big believer in that. Don't talk about it, be about it. Dan Quinn is Commanders head coach. So far has been excellent at presiding over a culture that is as much about action as the culture is about words.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Well, a season in which the Orioles have gotten hammered by injury for a second consecutive season now includes the Orioles closer getting injured. The O's on Thursday afternoon did win a 4-3 win at the Cleveland Guardians to prevent a 4-game sweep. This was just the Orioles' second win over their last 9 games. But we can say that the O's, Joe Angel, were back in the win column.
And the Orioles again in the win column.
Yes, Joe, the win column. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 45-57, third worst record in the American League. But yeah, their closer, Felix Bautista, the man known as the Mountain. He now is out. The O's on Thursday morning announced having placed Bautista on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to July 21st. This due to right shoulder discomfort. Bautista is having a good season off. Remember, not having pitched at all last season due to Tommy John surgery that he underwent in October 2023. This is his age 30 season. He's older than you may think, but he's under team control through the 2027 season. The 2025 MLB trade deadline is this Thursday, July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern. I don't know that Bautista being dealt in the lead up to that deadline was ever likely, but any chance of him being dealt in the lead up to that deadline now would appear to be gone. An Orioles pitcher who does seem likely to be traded in the lead up to this year's trade deadline is starter Charlie Morton, as he is a veteran on a one-year contract, and he has been pitching well for a while now here. Morton in this 4-3 win at the Guardians on Thursday afternoon, good again. He allowed 3 runs in 6 2/3 innings with 7 strikeouts. He gave up 5 hits, which were 2 home runs and 3 singles. He issued 4 walks and a hit by pitch, but he threw a lot of strikes, 107 pitches, 74 strikes, 33 balls. Morton was coming off a bad outing. He and the Orioles' 11-1 loss at the Tampa Bay Rays this past Friday night officially allowed 7 runs in 5 1/3 innings, but he over 10 starts since returning to the Orioles' rotation of having been demoted from the rotation due to being so bad, has allowed 23 earned runs in 68 2/3 innings. That works out to an ERA of 3.01. I fully expect him to be dealt in the lead up to this trade deadline. The Orioles' Felix Bautista-less bullpen in this 4-3 win at the Guardians on Thursday afternoon was good. 3 Orioles relievers combined for 2 1/3 scoreless innings. Corbin Martin faced 1 batter and got 1 out. In fact, he threw 1 pitch and got 1 out. Sir Anthony Dominguez tossed a scoreless bottom of the 8th with 2 swinging strikeouts despite giving up 2 singles. And Gregory Soto tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts for the save. Both Dominguez and Soto are trade chips, and another Orioles trade chip who did well in this 4-3 win at the Guardians on Thursday afternoon was Ramon Laureano. He homered for a 3rd time in 4 games in this series. He is the Orioles starting left fielder and number 4 batter, went 1 for 5 with a 2-run homer. Laureano now for this regular season, 264 plate appearances, OPS of 858. Now, the Orioles offense overall was just so-so in this game. 4 runs, 8 hits, 2 walks, 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits were the homer, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. Next up for the O's is a 7-game homestand beginning with a 3-game series against the MLB worst Colorado Rockies at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Game 1 Friday night at 7:05, Dean Kramer will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 Saturday night at 7:05, Trevor Rogers will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 1:35, Tomoyuki Sagano will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Monday show, episode 1120. We'll have a lot for you on the Commanders, as this weekend is the NFL's annual Back Together weekend, a celebration of all 32 NFL teams having started their training camps. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series at the Minnesota Twins. The O's this weekend have a 3-game series against the Colorado Rockies at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
You know, the Washington Redskins called me